In the winter of 48 BC, the ancient world came within a night of losing itself. Julius Caesar had arrived in Alexandria chasing the ghost of Pompey, the defeated rival whose head was delivered to him on Egyptian soil before he could set foot on the dock. What he found instead of resolution was catastrophe. The city of Alexander, the greatest seat of learning the Mediterranean world had ever produced, was consuming itself in civil war. Ptolemy XIII's forces had fractured the harbor. Roman sailors, threatened by seizure of the Egyptian fleet, set fire to the warships at anchor. The flames did not stay on the water. They moved through the dockyards, through the warehouses along the waterfront, toward the district where something irreplaceable had been accumulating for 200 years. The Library of Alexandria held within its walls the astronomical tables by which sailors navigated open seas, the engineering treatises that had raised aqueducts and bridges across the ancient world, medical manuscripts compiled from Egyptian, Greek, Babylonian, and Persian traditions, mathematical works that had not been copied elsewhere, the accumulated reasoning of civilizations across centuries, not preserved for sentiment, but because generation after generation of scholars had understood that knowledge, once lost, is not simply rediscovered. It vanishes. On that burning night, one man understood how to make Caesar understand the same thing. Sosigenes of Alexandria was not a diplomat. He was an astronomer and mathematician, already known in Roman intellectual circles, a man whose mind moved in celestial tables and geometric proofs. Through Cleopatra's intervention, she who had been smuggled into the palace wrapped in linen, already calculating the terms of her own survival, Sosigenes gained access to Caesar's quarters before midnight. He did not appeal to culture. He did not speak of heritage or beauty or the grief of burning books. He spread his charts across the campaign table between the military maps and the wax dispatches, and he spoke Caesar's language, power, logistics, and the cost of ignorance. The astronomical records held in this building, he argued, were the foundation of accurate naval navigation. Without them, Roman fleets would sail by imprecision for generations. The engineering manuscripts contained techniques Rome had not yet mastered, techniques that could reduce the cost and time of building infrastructure across an empire still expanding. The medical knowledge could lower battlefield casualties. The grain yield calculations were essential to feeding a capital that could no longer sustain itself on Italian soil alone. Burn this building, Sosigenes told him, and Rome wins a harbor. Protect it, and Rome inherits the leverage of every civilization that came before it. Caesar listened past dawn. Before the morning watch changed, he issued a military protection order, designating the library, the Mautian, and every affiliated academy as protected Roman assets under military sanction. Engineers and fire wardens were redirected from the harbor to the library district, structures were demolished to clear fire breaks, sand trenches were cut across stone streets through the remaining hours of darkness. Legionaries stood line against the approaching flames with tools and water and the particular exhausted discipline of men who have been ordered to hold ground and intend to do it. The fire reached stone walls and cleared earth. It found nothing more to consume. By mid-morning, the library district stood smoke-stained and scarred, but intact. Cleopatra, who had engineered the meeting as precisely as any military campaign, immediately framed Caesar's order as divine sanction of her reign, proof that the queen who had brought Rome and wisdom into alliance was the rightful inheritor of Egypt's ancient authority. Ptolemy XIII's faction lost the propaganda war as thoroughly as the military one. And Sosigenes, working now with uninterrupted access to the full depth of Babylonian, Egyptian, and Greek astronomical records, began the calendrical reform that would produce the Julian calendar, more precise, more complete than history otherwise allowed. But the deeper consequence did not belong to any single reign or reform. Caesar's protection order established a precedent that traveled forward through Roman administrative doctrine, imperfect and often violated but alive. When later crises came, civil wars, plagues, the long pressures of incursion and collapse, enough leaders in enough places remembered the Alexandrian precedent to act on it. Knowledge repositories were strategic assets. Their destruction was a military and imperial loss, not merely a cultural one. The scholars who would one day forge the great frameworks of law, theology, and engineering that held civilization together across the centuries of crisis did not work from fragments and recovered rumors. They worked from a living tradition, continuous, compounding, and profound. One night's argument, one order issued before dawn, and the ancient world did not forget what it knew. History, it turns out, is not only written by the victors. Sometimes it is preserved by a single man who understood in the dark and the smoke and the firelight that the most powerful thing a conqueror can do is refuse to let the world grow smaller.